Hey, I'm so glad you're here with us today. So, in your past or present, do you go to the personality profiles and check out to see how your personality fits with other situations in the world and work with other people? Well, my friend has a personality profile that is just slightly different. It's a common name, but the way she approaches it is just slightly different. So come on and join us today on Weezy to see what it's all about. Hey, everybody, welcome back. So, today my guest is Kim Eddy, and she has authored a book about the Enneagram, but she does it with a slightly different approach. So, come on and let's see how Kim has chosen to choose to do the Enneagram in her style. Hey, Kim, how are you today?
Good. I'm so glad to be here, Louise.
Um, so, so Kim, you've written this book on the Enneagram, and I was reading in it, and you said that you had done it with your personality profile and you got a little stuck. So you decided to look at it through a different lens. What is that different lens?
Yeah. So I got into the Enneagram, which is kind of this personality typing system that helps you understand kind of your core motivations, how you work, your inner world, and things like that. And you're right, I did get stuck. I was in a counseling situation and just feeling unheard, misunderstood, like what I was saying wasn't getting across. Um, And so I went to the great Google and I searched for a way to kind of figure out how to explain who I am on the inside, how to understand myself and communicate
Hmm.
that to somebody else. And the Enneagram came up and I followed the links. I started reading and I really kind of never stopped. And you mentioned how I kind of approach it a little bit differently now that I teach on it myself. And that really is through my own faith lens, kind of matching up my spiritual beliefs with how I understand the Enneagram framework to work and behave. And so that's been a lot of fun to kind of put those two things together to see uh, how 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 it all works together, if that makes sense.
So, so Kim, what is the meaning behind Enneagram?
The word itself is really kind of simple. It means it comes from Greek base words, and ennea is 9, and gram is diagram or picture. And really, it is just this idea that there are 9 valid perspectives on life, kind of these 9 ways that we view the world through our own little lens. And we've learned to kind of cope when life is hard or when we face struggles. And we usually learn this from a young age. And it kind of solidifies into this personality type structure, this worldview, these coping strategies that we take on and utilize to try and make life smoother and try and get through the hard bits and also the strengths that we tend to lean on in life. And so that's where the name comes from, is just those 9 different personality types put into a diagram.
Okay. So how does this differ from other personality profiles that we might be familiar with, like the DISC or the Griggs-Meyer profiles?
Yeah. So the disc, the Myers Briggs, those kinds of things are really helpful to see, almost like a CT scan. You know how they kind of you get a cross section of what's going on with a CT scan. It Those are really helpful to see where you are, how you show up, the behaviors that you exhibit to other people. But the Enneagram is a little bit different because it's a little more like, uh, and I really should have come prepared with my knowledge of the medical stuff, but but more like an MRI or something that's a little more of a 3D view on not only where you're at, but how you got there. So the Enneagram looks at motivations, the why behind what you're doing. And that can be really
Okay.
helpful if you're trying to understand what's going on and not just how you're showing up. Although that is a part of the Enneagram, it's not how we find your personality type within that. It's only a part of who you are your choices and behaviors. Who you are is more where those choices come from.
Okay. Um, so what's the benefits of knowing what type you are?
Well, I think there's a lot personally, but probably some of the biggest ones is really being able to empathize with other people. I think a lot of times we see somebody's behavior and we think they shouldn't do that, or we think that they're wrong, or we think they should see life the same way we do. And one of the things that the Enneagram has helped me with is to really see the nuance and to see how somebody else's perspective is valid even when it's not mine. And so I think empathy is one of the biggest things that you can gain as you start to understand not just how someone is different, but why they're different and the things that might have made them uh, have this valid perspective that's different from me. And then also just being able to communicate, understand myself and communicate that to other people, my why, my understanding. And then one of the ways that it's been really helpful for me personally is that understanding myself and being able to communicate that to other people so that they understand where I'm coming from and that I also have a valid perspective. So, really, it's been a great way for me to understand myself and not just what I do, but why I do it, and then understand other people, not just what they do or how it might rub me the wrong way, but why they're doing it and the heart behind that.
Oh, that is so important. Yeah. So we all need to learn that. All need to learn those skills
Yeah, I
because
think
that
so.
is that's so much more beyond of just figuring out what personality type you are. But it seems like this has a lot more building blocks to it than
Yeah.
a
Hmm.
regular personality profile that we might have looked at in the past or taken. I'm so intrigued now. So I want to know more. So exactly how does this Enneagram work?
Yeah. So basically, if you're looking at a circle, then the Enneagram, the nine drawing, the nine diagram that the word comes from is just basically nine types and they're numbered one to nine. Some people think that there's a hierarchy, like one must be best and nine must be worst, but that's not how it works. It's just a way of identifying them. And really, each of these nine types has these core motivations that they've learned to lead from. We all kind of have our full human beings, we're whole humans. We all have all of all of the Enneagram in us, but we tend to lead from one the most. And that's because we've learned that leading from whatever motivation it is, whatever we're trying to get and desiring and trying to avoid or fearing, is what's going to keep us from harm and help us be comfortable and find the good in life. And so that's really what those motivations are. A few examples, although probably don't have time to go into all nine. I am an Enneagram type 1, and that means that some of my biggest motivators in life is trying to pursue being right, being appropriate, uh, perfection, however I rate that standard for myself. And because I'm chasing after that thing, I'm running away from and I'm fearing being wrong, being inappropriate, being seen as or believing I am imperfect. And I think if I'm any of those things, I'm going to be harmed in life. And so another part of the framework of the Enneagram is helping us understand how we can grow past just focusing on that little slice, those little slices of things in life, and opening ourselves up to growth. So for me as an Enneagram type 1, being able to embrace like the nuances of life and seeing the gray scale instead of just black and white, wrong and right, and falling into judgment of myself or criticalness of others because I think that I know the right standard. Being able to see grace and offer forgiveness to myself and others is a real growth point for me, and helps me not just chase one thing, not just run from that thing, but really see life as bigger than the blinders that I had on. And all of us have kind of these different blinders. And it's those motivations that put those blinders on us that really help us see our motivations. And because of those motivations, what our Enneagram type is.
Okay. So how would talking about finding out what your Enneagram is, how does a person go about finding out what their type is?
Well, there are a lot of ways that people have come up with. Probably many of your listeners are familiar with personality tests, assessments you can take where you take a quiz and it spits out whatever you are for whatever the test is trying to help you find. And this can be a little bit difficult for the Enneagram because it's not just looking at what you're doing. It can be easy to answer a question that is asking if someone, cuts you off in traffic, what is your first response? And that can be pretty easy to identify because you can just remember what was my first response. But if you're asking if someone cuts you off in traffic, why do you get angry? Or why do you get anxious? Or why do you feel like you're in the wrong? That shame piece. And that can be a lot harder to identify. That it can be a lot harder to put yourself back in that moment and not just look at what you did, but look at why you did it. And so there have been some tests that have tried, and some of them are better than others, although it's just a very difficult thing to do. So I have a favorite way that I do that, and I walk people through an exercise that helps them figure out um, how they approach situations and the reasons why they do things, and how they show up, like their kind of autopilot programming, to help them figure that out. And it requires some self-reflection, as most worthwhile endeavors do. So I did make a little class to go along with that to help people figure that out, just because it takes a little bit of a little bit of walking through. So that's probably my favorite way. People can also, there's my book can help walk people through that, but there's also really great free online resources to just help find descriptions of the types, and that can be a way to help see yourself or not see yourself, in the different types. So there's a lot of ways. I would say a test is not my favorite when it comes to the Enneagram, and something that requires a little bit of thought and a little bit of inner reflection is really going to give you your best bet if it's something that you're interested in.
Okay. Very good. So we've talked about it and you've hit some really good highlights to what our appetites. So now that we're ready to figure out what kind of personality or, well, what kind of type we might be in the Enneagram, how do we go about finding your book?
It's the Enneagram for Beginners, a Christian guide to understanding your type for a God centered life. And you can find that wherever you get your books.
So that's how you can get the book, but how can they find out more about you and the programs that you offer, Kim?
Yeah, so you can find me online at christianenneagram.coach, www.christianenneagram.coach, not .com. You can find me there, and that has all the different ways to find me in all the different places.
Awesome. Well, Kim, this has just been so enlightening. And I have the book. I haven't finished it yet, but I am ready to dig in and see more of what I'm about. And I hope you, the listeners, will go ahead and order a copy of this really awesome book by my friend, Kim Eddy. So that's all we have for today, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Louise. Bye.